The system of measurement was the first shared language through which humanity turned uncertainty into numbers, and numbers into trust. A weight stone, a length rod, a volume vessel. These were not merely tools, they were the material form of people saying, "We agree." The world began to understand itself not through words but through measurement. Without measurement, how would prices have formed? How would exchange have remained stable? If everyone spoke according to their own measure, how could trust ever emerge? This may seem like a technical issue, but in reality, it is a political one. Because whoever defines the measure also sets the terms, and whoever sets the terms controls the game. Whether someone is deceived or not begins right here. That is why, throughout history, states have fought to control measurement systems. And that struggle continues in the market even today. Measurement is not just a number. Measurement shapes power in the marketplace. Whoever defines the measure also draws the boundaries of the market. Before measurement systems existed, exchange did exist, but the process behind that exchange was not what it is today. Two people met, each extended what they had and talked until both agreed. This agreement was not based on numbers, but on feeling, relationship, and trust. The stronger side achieved a better deal. The familiar side made a fairer exchange. The unfamiliar side was often deceived. This system worked, but only within small, closed, familiar communities. As societies grew, trade routes lengthened, and people began trading with strangers. The old rules no longer worked, and insecurity emerged. Because there was no familiarity, no personal trust, no shared basis for comparison. It was precisely this gap that made measurement systems a necessity. Measurement became the substitute for trust between strangers. You do not know me, I do not know you, but we both know how much this weight stone weighs and what that weight amounts to. This shared knowledge formed the foundation of exchange. In other words, the issue was not trusting the person, but trusting the same measure. From that moment on, trade moved away from personal relationships and became rule-based, and continued in that way. In the 3rd millennium BCE, the first standard weight systems emerged in the Sumerian cities. The unit called the shekel was used as a standard measure in trade transactions. This shekel was not merely a metal weight, it was also a legal concept. Falsifying the shekel was severely punished. This punishment system shows how political a matter measurement truly was. Measurement was not a technical standard, but a social contract. Breaking that contract was considered a crime against society. In Egypt, the grain measure called the hekat stood at the center of economic life. The pharaoh's granaries were calculated with this unit, taxes were collected with it, and workers' wages were paid according to it. The value of one hekat was kept stable. This stability was not accidental. Whoever defined the measure also set the rule. Because the pharaoh defined the measure, power over economic relations inevitably formed in his hands. Controlling measurement was not merely a technical issue. It meant directly controlling the economy. Whoever controlled the measure wrote the rules and their conditions. In ancient India, the Harappan civilization developed an extraordinarily precise weight system in the 2nd millennium BCE. Archaeological excavations reveal that weight stones in Harappan cities conformed to the same standard. This standardization shows that trade was possible across a wide geography. But something else is more interesting. After this system collapsed, the Indian subcontinent was unable to restore the same level of standardization for a long time. The loss of the measurement system directly caused trade to regress. This connection proves that measurement is economic infrastructure. In Greece, talent, mina, and drachma were not merely names of measures. They indicated both weight and money. This was not a coincidence, because money itself is also a measure, a tool for measuring value. At that time, knowing the price of something also meant knowing its weight. The question, what is value, did not remain unanswered. It was tied to a concrete unit. As much as the weight, so much the value. This concreteness kept the market standing. Because value could be measured, exchange remained stable. People agreed not by estimation but by measurement, by a new precision. When measurement existed, Words did not speak, numbers did, and numbers created trust between people. The Roman Empire viewed measurement systems as a core tool of governance. Explaining Rome's greatness solely through military power is insufficient. Rome was also an empire of standardization. The same law, the same language, the same road width, the same weight system. These standards facilitated trade. Trade, in turn, unified the imperial economy. A Roman merchant could operate with the same weight system from Spain to Syria. This capability was the Roman version of a modern single market. The European Union's single market is an intellectual continuation of Roman standardization. But the history of measurement systems is not only a story of unity and agreement, it is also a story of manipulation, because whoever set the standard also held the advantage. In medieval Europe, every feudal lord had their own weight rules. These differences complicated trade, but created advantages for the feudal lords. When a foreign merchant arrived, they did not know the local measures. Because they did not know them, they were placed in a weak position. The local side, meanwhile, held the advantage. This confusion was not accidental. The absence of standardization was sometimes deliberately maintained, because uncertainty created power. If measurement was confused, the strong class wrote the rules. Venice was one of the city-states that applied this manipulation most subtly. Venetian merchants interpreted local measurement standards in foreign ports in ways favorable to themselves. This right of interpretation was a major source of profit. Local merchants used the same tricks. Each port tried to gain advantage over others through its own measurement system. This competition slowed trade, but accelerated power struggles. Measurement had turned into a political weapon. The French Revolution became one of the greatest turning points in the history of measurement systems. In 1795, the metric system was officially adopted. This was not merely a technical innovation, but an explicitly political decision. All measures had become tools of feudal power. Each region had its own unit, each feudal lord their own rule. This confusion preserved the position of the aristocracy. Whoever set the rule retained the advantage. The metric system destroyed this fragmentation. A system that was the same for everyone, simple and decimal-based, was introduced. This change shifted rules away from personal power toward general principles. Feudal fragmentation gave way to a unified rule. Here it was not just measurement that changed. It changed who held power and the direction of the process. The spread of the metric system accelerated economic integration. Trade within France expanded immediately because measurement disputes disappeared. The elimination of disputes reduced transaction costs. Lower transaction costs increased profit. Increased profit attracted investment. Investment accelerated the Industrial Revolution. The spread of the metric system across Europe during the same period as the Industrial Revolution was not a coincidence. Measurement standardization made industrial scale possible. England resisted this change for a long time. The imperial system, feet, miles, gallons, pounds, was preserved. This choice was not merely about tradition. There were economic interests involved. Britain controlled its domestic market through its own units and directed colonial trade according to its own rules. Colonial countries were forced to learn British measures. This compulsion created dependency. Dependency meant that trade was conducted under Britain's conditions. The measurement system was not an open display of force, but a silent means of control. To understand colonial economies, it is essential to see this mechanism, because sometimes power operates not through weapons but through units. In the modern world, this logic can be seen in standard wars. Format wars in technology. VHS versus Betamax, USB-C versus earlier standards, different payment systems, are all modern forms of measurement system competition. Whoever defines the standard defines power over the market. This struggle is not structurally different from the competition over weight stones in Sumerian cities. Only the form has changed, the logic has not. Financial markets themselves are also a measurement system. Price indices, exchange rates, Interest calculations. All are attempts to turn economic reality into numbers. That is, to make complex processes measurable. But these measurements are not fully neutral. They are the result of choices. For example, how is inflation calculated? Which goods are included in the basket and which are excluded? These decisions are not purely technical. There is politics here. If a government wants to show inflation as lower, it can change the basket's composition. That is interference with measurement. Just as a feudal lord once gained advantage by altering a weight stone, today the same logic operates when calculation rules change. If the measure changes, the result changes as well. The gold standard gains an entirely new meaning in this context. The shift to the gold standard in the 19th century was essentially the creation of an international measurement system. Each currency was tied to a fixed amount of gold. Gold was a universal unit of measurement, known by everyone, accepted by everyone, difficult to falsify. This system accelerated international trade by eliminating disputes over currency conversion. But at the same time, it restricted national economic policy, because once a measurement system is accepted, its conditions must also be accepted. The Bretton Woods system advanced this logic even further. Established in 1944, it turned the dollar into the unit of measurement for international trade. The dollar was tied to gold, and other currencies were tied to the dollar. This two-tier measurement system formed the foundation of American economic hegemony, because whoever defined the unit of measurement also defined the terms of international trade. When Nixon severed the dollar-gold link in 1971, he changed this measurement system. The consequences of that change are still felt today. Cryptocurrency attempted to move this story into a new phase. For example, Bitcoin's supply, being capped at a maximum of 21 million, was not merely a technical detail, but a measurement choice. This choice represents an explicit stance against inflation. The claim here is simple: the state should not be able to change the measure at will. Measurement should be protected from political intervention. Because when measurement changes, trust is shaken. This idea may seem new, but the problem has existed since the past and continues today. The logic is the same between the man who falsified a weight stone in an ancient market and the system that changes measurement rules today. If measurement is not trustworthy, everything built upon it is at risk. Without trust, no system can stand for long. The deepest lesson of the history of measurement systems is this: economic power does not come from production, but from measurement. Whoever determined what and how things were measured determined the essence of economic relations. Without seeing this truth, it is impossible to fully understand currency wars, standard competition, or international financial systems. The hand that holds the measuring stone has always been the powerful hand. Today, the stone may be digital, but the power of the hand holding it has not changed.